All right, we are live. So get a second. Let the people populate. See how many we got in here.
All right. So while you do that, can I talk real quick? I got to show you something. All right. So for those who I don't know if he's got it up or anything, like you have to show us your badassery on your 40th anniversary photo. But I did get Santa. Oh, dude, you have it right there.
It's not up, and I got a problem. My space in my man cave is limited right now. There's like no space on the walls anywhere. I'm gonna have to rearrange some stuff.
Clearly, you need a bigger house, Brent.
Yeah, that's it. So I did. So I started like populating. You haven't been into my man cave yet, but I want to show you like these two I got from Santa, and I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, there it is. This one here. And that's, you know, for every generation there are heroes. This one's no different. And that's right there with the Iraq War. But I don't know how well you can see that one. That's a old 1983 vintage ad. Be all you can be, 11 Bravo. And he's sitting there with the new K-pot and all this other stuff. And I found those. Santa brought them to me. And I tell you what I love about those two is they were so instrumental. And you know, you don't think an ad's going to have that much impact on you, but there are some phenomenon in our life that we look back on, and I realized when I saw this thing come up, and I was like, oh man, I got to have that and frame it, because that was it. When I remember in high school seeing that Be All You Can Be with the dude sitting there on the helicopter with this brand new helmet. I'm like, what is this? It's woodland, it's like what? And there's a K-pot and all this. Man, I'm an Army brat, and I was just like, wait. That doesn't look like the Army. I was just in a few years ago as a dependent, and it moved me. I mean, I knew I was going to go military, but I think that was the moment I went, yeah, I'm going infantry.
So Army, because that's all you can be.
Well, I couldn't swim real well, so they wouldn't take me in the Navy. I wasn't smart. They wouldn't take me in the Air Force, and I couldn't get a date, so they wouldn't take me in the Marines.
Have you seen the 19, and you guys can look this up on YouTube. It's on there. It's a U.S. Marine Corps Reserve recruiting commercial from like the 1970s, and it's got a guy, and he's coming out of the water. He's like looking left and right, and it's like talking about like hitting the beach and stuff. And then all of a sudden, he just grabs up this beautiful blonde woman, and then they get in a Corvette, and they drive to the drill center, and like he like conspicuously gives her a kiss and then goes back inside. It's the most iconic recruiting commercial I've ever seen, and that summed up my career in a nutshell. Muscle car, beautiful blonde.
That's what it was like for me too. Mm-hmm. Go with that.
I thought that the Army of One recruiting ads and stuff were the worst until I saw the Emma Two Mommies commercials. But I was like, man, you spent all this time building teams and teamwork and working as a team and unit cohesion, and then you come out with Army of One.
So the Army never should have gotten. They went to, I think it was 80 or 81. They went to Be All You Can Be, right? Because before that, it was join the people who joined the Army. And by the way, so you get back to the 70s, and it was, the fall of Saigon on, it was the worst military ever, probably arguably ever in America's history. It was just so demoralized and drug-ridden and everything else. And what they were, you look at all the advertisements back then, they were trying to say, come have this wonderful, comfortable life. You'll be glamorous. Don't worry about military stuff. You don't need to worry about that. We don't do that anymore. That's kind of what the sales pitch was. But by the time I got there, it had started, in 85, I joined, and it really had, from pretty much 82, 83 on, it really started to revamp itself and say, no, forget that. We don't take you if you've got a criminal record. We don't take you if you have drugs. At this point, we're highly competitive. We've got this wonderful college fund, all of these things. And, that's not the right reason to join. The right reason to join, of course, is to defend your nation. But I have to admit the professionalism from Be All You Can Be Army through the 80s and 90s. And I don't think they gave it up until 2000. And they never should have given it up, because they went to that Army of One, and it just sent the wrong message all the way across the board. And the only reason I like that particular, this one over here, is I'll read it. It says, every generation has its heroes. This one is no different. This is 2002 with, Iraq right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I think that resonated well with me. This is after the September 11th attacks. I realized, oops, I'm going back in. I don't know how I'm going back in, but I just finished up my master's, and the September 11th attacks already happened. This thing came out, and that was kind of one of those gut check moments where, yeah, this generation has, heroes too. So let's go in. And so they're very, like, to me, they actually shaped me more than I knew. And then I see them years later, and I thought, yeah, I got to have that. But anyway, lots of stories there.
I know we're going down a rabbit hole. We will get to our topic of conversation tonight, guys. I promise. But I got to admit this or bring this up. I would like to see a number of stats on guys who had broken time and they came back specifically for the war on terror. And the reason I say that is because when I left active duty and went into the reserves in 2006, there were two sergeants that had served in Desert Storm in there. Sergeants. They're not first sergeants. They're not, sergeants majors. They're freaking sergeants. They are guys that did their initial 4 years, and back in the day in the early 90s, got out. And then once the GWOT kicked off, they came back in, served in the reserves. And I know that is certainly true when I was on active duty during the 03 invasion. Our AEV crewmen, I mean, these guys were like 40-something-year-old Lance Corporals driving those AAVs, reserve Amtrackers out of Texas. So I would be curious to know how many people actually came out, put the civilian life on hold and came back to join into the fight.
I know 3 guys that did that. It served with me over in Desert Storm that went back in after 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. I guess we'll get to the topic at hand here. So before I introduce the topic, I'm just going to go around here and just introduce our guests. We are a little light on guests tonight, but we got our normal crowd here, our regulars. We got Les at Pegasus Tests. He has his own YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out. Les was a Marine in the early 90s. He is a veteran of the Gulf War. He owns his own logistics company and training company. So it just brings a wealth of knowledge to this chat here. Our next gentleman here, again, is no stranger to this live stream. This is Dr. Christopher Larson. He is the founder of the One Shepherd Leadership Institute, going 40 years strong. He is a NCO Army veteran. He served in Korea, and he's also an accomplished author and has written many books on small unit tactics. So that is our panel tonight, guys. I am potentially expecting at least 1, maybe 2 more guys. If they don't show up, it is what it is. I think you guys can do without them. But you got the cream of crop here right now. I got the Vanguard. Yeah. So with that being said, guys, this is a topic that, I know the 3 of us have talked extensively about. And a reason for that is because One Shepherd essentially introduced the light support weapon as a curriculum recently in this past couple semesters. And it's just something we've kicked around. And so with that, our topic tonight, guys, is the automatic rifleman. All right. So you got the billet of automatic rifleman. And then over the years, we've seen kind of the weapon systems that automatic rifleman employs change, right? So when they first were introduced, you had essentially a true automatic rifle, right? Going from World War I all the way into Vietnam. And then after Vietnam, we get a light machine gun to fill that automatic rifleman role. So the Marine Corps was probably the first one, is the first one that I can think of, that is kind of going back to, or has gone back to, that original intent of having an automatic rifle. So I know when the Marine Corps is coming out with this idea, like, hey, we're going to go back to our roots on this and have an automatic rifle for the automatic rifleman as opposed to a light machine gun. And if you don't know what light machine gun we're talking about the M249 squad automatic weapon, aka this SAW. Okay. The Army still uses a SAW. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I know there was a lot of Marines when this was introduced back in, I think it was 2010, 2011 timeframe. A lot of people were like, what are you guys doing? You can't get rid of the SAW. The SAW is it's our firepower, right? But they were not thinking anything about history and what we used leading up to the SAW. So that is our topic tonight, guys. We're going to kick around, kind of light machine gun versus auto rifle for the automatic rifleman. We'll talk some history. And I also want to introduce, I don't want to kick this aside because I know there's a lot of civilians watching, and civilians can't own saws for the most part. So what makes a decent automatic rifle for the civilian warrior out there? So that's definitely a point I want to get to later on down the road, maybe towards the end of the live stream. So that being said, I bumped my gums long enough. Who wants to kick this off?
I'll go for it.
Well, what? That's how unique.
I know. Nobody was expecting it. So, yeah. No. I think to begin the subject, we need to look at the end of the First World War. The big lesson that came out of the First World War was water-cooled machine guns were very heavy and almost impossible to move forward as you tried to get your troops advancing out of the trenches. Now, America went down a different path than the rest of the world. At the end of the First World War, the Russians came up with the DP-28 magazine-fed light machine gun. The Germans came up with the GPMG, the MG-34. The French had the Châtellerault, and the British came out with a very excellent Bren gun. And the rest of your European countries had some version of that they made on the home turf. But in America, we did something very different. We come out of the First World War with the M1918 water-cooled machine gun. It was, by water-cooled standards, already pretty light. And in development, but not produced in time for the war, we had the 1919 air-cooled tripod-mounted machine gun, which by World War I standards, very light. And we were very happy with that. And what we focused all our development on was the Riflemen. So fast forward to the beginning of the Second World War, the Russians have their neat little light machine guns, so the French, the Germans, the British, but they're all still basically using the same rifles they used in the First World War. The United States is the opposite. We're using the same machine gun, the 1919 essentially, but we have this fancy new semi-automatic rifle. So we looked at it differently than the rest of the world. And I think where that led us down the path, as Brent taught at the WAC there, is we had an automatic rifle and we went through different iterations of it, and we went the wrong direction with it when you end up in Vietnam where, hey, you're the automatic rifleman, here's a bipod for your M16. You know, too far down the other direction. We overcorrected with the M249 SAW. Although, to be fair, the SAW was adopted, especially by the Army, at the point when the air-land battle was the main focus. The U.S. Army in the 1980s and the 1970s was focused on the Fulda Gap and nowhere else on the planet, basically. And with hordes of Russians coming through that gap, SAW is probably what you needed more than an automatic rifle. And I think that's how we ended up to where we are right now.
Yeah, so M27 is the new infantry rifle for every Marine infantry, not just the automatic rifleman. And I think that that's an overcorrection. You know how the pendulum swings, right? It's an overcorrection. I'm sorry to see that happen. Brent and I, well, we've all talked a little bit about this. So let me try to quantify. Let me try to quantify this. My dad did my father, Vietnam veteran, 20-year career man, soldier himself. And when they were in Vietnam, just for shits and giggles, they decided, hey, let's have this competition. You know, you're bored and they're sitting on the side of a mountain. And so they said, okay, we'll take the M60 machine gun, belt-fed, medium machine gun. And they had it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to talk about the metrics. The point is that they decided they've got some sand barrels over there, some targets at a certain distance. Let's see who outshoots whom. And they got, and to keep it fair, this time they had M14s. So they had 10 riflemen with M14s, and they're trying to shoot against one M60 gunner crew, right? And long story short, when they measured everything, it turned out that the 10 riflemen outshot the M60 gun, but barely. I mean, just barely. The competition was neck and neck. So I need to talk to you about what those metrics were, I'm sure, to satisfy curiosity. But here's the important thing, that apparently, you don't have to agree, but what my father and the soldiers in his section decided there that afternoon in a mountaintop in Vietnam was, wow, a well-trained M60, three-man crew, they can hold their own against 10 riflemen. Okay. Now, just if you accept that as true, and these guys are experienced, combat experienced guys, so they did that, and they're like, yeah, it's an M60 crew, a medium machine gun crew versus 10 riflemen. It's pretty even. I would say an auto rifle is good for about maybe a 4-man fire team. Can hold off a 4-man fire team. It cannot hold off a 10-man squad. And why am I saying that? So maybe one LSW, one M27 or BAR. There's lots of variations of auto rifles, but when you look at its equivalent of its day, it would be able to hold off 3 or 4 riflemen, or do as much damage, however you want to express that. So wait a minute. Then right away you got to say, hold, there's a difference there. There is a difference between a rifle, an auto rifle, and a machine gun. And everybody goes, duh. The rifle is a bolt action or a semi-auto, and the auto rifle is full auto. No. You're not employing it right. You're not employing it as the doctrine. And the doctrine was, started in 1916 with the show, the French show, and it really matures up till 1959. And so that's quite a bit of time. 1916, 1959. Someone do the math for me. What's that? Like 45 years-ish. And so you got 45 years of world wars, guys, world at war, figuring out how the hell do we use an auto rifle and what's it good for and what's it not good for. And we'll delve into that here, I'm sure. But the point here is a rifle is not an auto rifle. I don't care that it has a select fire. That doesn't make it an auto rifle. It doesn't, but it's an automatic rifle. Yes, I know, but it's not being employed as an auto rifle. That's why the M16 is, as Les just said, yeah, you throw this guy this plastic clip-on bipod and say, hey, you're our automatic rifleman. I'm sorry, it takes a lot more than that, a whole lot more than that. That was so lackluster in the auto form. And what preceded it, by the way, was the the M1A, we know it, M14, the M14 with a select fire little plug inside of it. And that led you to go to full auto, and that damn thing was almost impossible to control. So no, you have to have a dedicated auto rifle. And there's certain characteristics we'll talk about, but I just want to point out that a light machine gun, heavy machine gun, and medium machine gun, these are all MGs. I don't care if it has an L, an M, or an H preceding it. That only tells me 2 things. One, it infers caliber, but not promises. And also it tells me how many men are on the crew. In theory, a light machine gun is a 2-man crew. A medium machine gun is a 3-man crew, and a heavy machine gun is a 5-man crew. In theory, there are variations of this, okay? But that's in theory, and you can look at the total weight when you go, what's the total weight? He's talking about the weight of the gun? No. The weight of the gun, the tripod, the spare barrel, the T&E, the pintle, and your basic load of ammunition. That's what you say is the weight of this weapon system. And you'll see that a light machine gun comes in about 60 pounds, easily split between 2 people. The medium machine gun comes in 90 to 100, and a heavy machine gun comes in right about 200. So when you start breaking that down, you're like, oh yeah, a 2-man team, a 3-man team, or a 5-man team. Now calibers are involved there. But what a machine gun is a quick detached barrel or a water-cooled that doesn't need to detach as long as you keep water pouring in there. So you've got some kind of sustainment, barrel sustainment, quick detach, changeable spares. It's belt fed. It tends to be belt fed box, but not magazine fed. And again, it's mountable and it's serviceable by a crew. And so this is what a machine gun is. Well, then what's an auto rifle? Not that. It's an individual weapon system. It doesn't change barrels. It's not fired by a belt. Why? Well, one reason that it's not fired by a belt is almost all belt-fired systems are open bolt. And that's a real pickle when you're like room clearing with an open bolt gun, guys. So it's got a lot of problems, open bolt guns. They're supposed to be manned by a crew, operated by a crew. So that's one problem. The other problem is when you go to change mags. A rifle can change mags really, really much quicker then I can get a whole new set of belt inside that feed tray, close the feed tray, get everything down, charge it twice, get my safety back on it, and engage. This is just, dude, you're going to get shot. So there's real capability difference as well as characteristic difference between an auto rifle and a machine gun, any kind of weight. LMG, HMG, MMG, doesn't matter. There's real fundamental differences. And just so we know, no, a lot of people are going, oh, no, an auto rifle is the guy, he's the designated marksman. No, that's not right either. A designated marksman is a designated marksman. It's a DMR. And that's not an auto rifle either. So I'm flapping my gums. Other guys have stuff to say. Jump in there, guys.
I'm reading a lot of the comments, and just because we don't comment on them, they're going 100 miles an hour. But I'm seeing a lot. There's a lot of love for the SAW in the comment section, and I have experienced that over the years, especially when the IAR was coming into service. Yeah, there you go.
I love SAW.
Right, but we need to remember the SAW had a lot of faults. All right, it had a lot of faults, and one of those things was, okay, you got 200 round box magazines or 100 round nut sacks. And then as a kind of a last ditch effort, it could take, regular magazines. Well, spread loading ammunition. All right. Your gunner himself, might have like two 200 round box magazines on his web gear. Plus he's got another 200 rounds on his weapon. Plus he's got a spare barrel, strapped to his back. I mean, that's a lot of freaking weight, guys. And if you need to redistribute ammunition, he can't just rip off that 20 rounds off his belt and throw it to the next rifleman. That rifleman's going to be sitting there trying to de-link these rounds. Like, it's not economy of forces. It's not easy and convenient. When in combat, you need to do that, right? Now, again, that rifleman can toss a magazine to that SAW gunner, but, he can't do the flip side of that. And SAWs are notoriously known for not feeding reliably with those magazines. But one important thing I want to note is the Marine Corps looked, when they were trying to make this decision, right? Let's leave the SAW and go in a different direction. They looked at, how are we suppressing our enemies? And when they introduced that SAW, it was, oh, we're putting, cones of fire on targets, and they're keeping enemy, heads down. Well, the Marine Corps said, well, another way to suppress a target is putting accurate fire on that target, and that keeps their head down just as well. And when they ran tests, IAR versus the SAW, in comparison of suppression and things like that, the IAR was achieving the same goals as that M249, and in doing so with less ammunition. So there was, and you got to think about the mobility standpoint, right? There's no question an IAR is significantly lighter than an M249 squad and weapon. How do we know that? Well, Marine Corps has now made the IAR the standard infantry rifle. Now everybody's got one. I mean, that's a whole different conversation that we might have later. But it was light enough to make the standard infantry weapon. That's how light the IAR was. But I can't stress enough about this point that, you weren't losing firepower and per se when you were talking about suppression. The Marine Corps was changing, heavy volumes of accurate long-range fire, beaten zones hitting a bunker, as opposed to now I'm putting concentrated precision shots and small, potentially small bursts of fire on that same target more accurately.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, right. So much to say there, and I can see you're right. Everybody's just like, the comments are coming in so fast. But I will say this, like going to the SAW. First, I think all three of us agree, and so many people on the comments agree, that the M249 is just a fantastic weapon system. After carrying the M60 on a crew for a year, I went to my next regiment, and they issued me the SAW, and I'd never seen one before. And I loved it. I loved it. It was rugged. It got the job done. Man, I'm telling you, we were so happy to have it. Everybody was. It was like they just were brand new, not to me, to that unit, to that regiment with the Rakkasans. And my old Rakkasans. Anyway, and they were brand new to us at the time, and God, we loved them. I can tell you story after story after story. Here's the thing we all noticed right away. We said, where's the spare barrel? I'm going to burn this barrel up. Where's the spare? I didn't get a basic load of 7 magazines like everybody else. I got a basic load of 600 or 800 rounds. Okay, I'm just going to burn this weapon system up. Where's the spare? And by the way, if you really want me to make this thing work 5.56 didn't offend me at all. I was like, it's a great round. You really want me to be out there and hitting targets the size of, someone's kitchen door at 800 meters at 2 o'clock in the morning? Where's my tripod? Where's my Pentel and T&E? I don't even need nods. I can register this fire here in the afternoon, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I can just nail the living crap out of that at a half mile away. I don't even have to see it. But you got to give me the tools. And what in Call of Duty? Jesus Christ. And it's much lighter. It is much lighter. I think it's like 7 pounds lighter in Call of Duty than it is in real life. Anyway, so this is the point. It just didn't. We all recognize its flaw right away. It had been misaligned. It was a great light machine gun. It is a great light machine gun that the Army had malaligned and said, well, we sold Belgium, or the Dutch, FN. We sold them a whole bunch of F-16s. We have to buy something of theirs. This is the new NATO. It's an exchange. And we've been meaning to fill the BAR since we got rid of it in 59. Let's go ahead and buy this M249. But they tried to force a square peg into a round hole, and it just never worked well. And I see all these people saying, but you're giving up firepower. You're giving up firepower. No, you're not. Not if you force structure, or you task structure correctly. As Brent said, here's the reality. I just told you a story where 10 rifles slightly outshot one machine gun with a 3-man crew. So a SAW, you can have rifles that sit there and do sustained fires, right? You have your different cyclic rate of fire, your rapid rate of fire, your sustained rate of fire, your slow rate of fire. You can do sustained fires and suppress the enemy with accuracy. And you never even need a M249 to do that. So there's different ways of suppressing your enemy. And I'm not saying the 249 was wrong. I'm saying it's a light machine gun. It had no business being in an AR role. And the only reason people really hate it, and it does have its detractors, every time I hear someone hating on the SAW, they're talking about it, and what they're saying is, they gave me a machine gun for an auto rifle. And that's why I hate it, because it's not an auto rifle. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. It's a great machine gun, though.
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to that, as I said at the beginning, when the American Army and military as a whole came out of the First World War, it decided to concentrate on the rifle and use the one machine gun that it had. We're coming back around that circle. We're focusing on individual firepower. So with every Marine getting an M27, his ability to sustain fires just went up. I'm not sure his accuracy's improved. I don't have any experience with the weapon system. But now the fire team, the squad, now has an overall increase in firepower, and worst case, the same amount. It's just distributed differently. And it's probably, and Brent, you might be able to speak to this, probably easier with everybody having an M27 to have talking guns and keeping up a rate of fire.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember, like, we still got M240s, right? So it's like we have medium machine guns in this fight. As far as I remember, there are a few SAWs still in the company level, like back in Armory, if they need to employ them, they can pull those out. But we got to remember, like an automatic rifleman, the key word there, guys, is rifleman, not machine gunner, rifleman, right? If he needs to take that semi-automatic precision shot with his rifle, he can do so, right? If he needs to up the ante and flick that selector switch to put a couple bursts on target while closing with the enemy, to suppress that enemy machine gun bunker while they're closing in to fucking put 6 inches of cold hard steel on a freaking commie's chest, he can do that, right? So, but, when you got freaking counterattack coming 300 meters out, and he needs to take precision fire at precision shots at 500 meters out, he can flick the semi and start engaging, right? Mm-hmm. So you really gotta keep in mind this automatic rifleman billet when we discuss, whether it was a good move to go from a SAW to an IAR. Nobody's saying, I don't think anybody's saying here that the M249 is not a good light machine gun. I discussed that it was heavy for the automatic rifle, but I wasn't saying it was a shitty machine gun. No, I would love to have a few automatic, a few light machine guns in my defense incorporated in it, or having those in an up armored vehicle as the secondary to a tow missile or something along those lines, So I think for the automatic rifleman, I've been swayed over, because I remember, man, I remember when this debate first started happening years ago. I remember, like, I can't believe they're going to take our saws from us, but over the years, I've seen how effective these weapon systems are. They were so effective and so successful. The Marine Corps was like, well, let's just give everybody one. They're freaking accurate, and they can do what we need it to do. So yeah, I saw somebody comment about that earlier, and they're like, well, I don't think it was, I'm paraphrasing the comment, but I from what I remember, I think he was like, well, I don't think they intended to replace the saw because they gave everybody an IR. Well, that wasn't the original. That wasn't the original thought. The original thought, all the saws got replaced. I remember this because I was actually in Afghanistan when this change took place. My infantry unit was the last one in country with saws. When we got there, everybody had saws, automatic riflemen, and then all the units that came in after us all had M249 IARs for their automatic riflemen. So I saw this change take place in country, and the initial reports, I remember hearing them all the time. Guys were getting kills far out. I mean, they were engaging targets out to like 700-800 meters out. And we're talking about their automatic riflemen. So they had that capability, right? Because they had, at the time, they had the I think it's SDO, squad designated optic. It's a little bit bigger than the the standard RCO that's on the rifle. So,
all right. So I think for me, it's time to start one of my silly ass analogies. So I'm going to go on a hunting party, and we're out for meat. This isn't for trophies. We gotta hunt. All right. So I got one guy. He's got a 22. I got one guy. He's got a 50 caliber Barrett. I got another guy with a 12 gauge shotgun, and I got another guy with a bow and arrow. We're walking along, the four of us, and we see a grizzly bear. You start to think, well, do I want the guy with the 22 to piss off the grizzly bear and him eat all of us? Am I want to take him with a bow and arrow? Shall I shoot him in the ass with a 12 gauge, or should I take him out with the 50 caliber Barrett? Well, wait, hold on. One of these things goes really well with a grizzly bear, and it's a 50 caliber Barrett. Right. We walk a little farther, and we see a bunny rabbit. Well, I mean, there's several options here, but what's the 22? You got it. Hey, we see a duck flying in. We're hunting for meat. Go ahead, shotgun, get that duck. And then we see a vampire. Well, now I need the bow and arrow, the stake through the heart sort of thing. Point is, and one of these things was mystical. That's right. It was the bunny rabbit. All right. My point here is that for every target in this hunting party, we have a potential, for every weapon system, we have a potential target that is most appropriate. It does not matter. Let's go back to the bunny rabbit. Essentially, we could have killed that bunny rabbit with anything. The 50 caliber wouldn't have left much meat to eat, but we could have shot it with multiple different things. The most rational, the easiest for cleaning up and eating was the 22. We decided and we do that. Well, here's a little surprise. Everybody's like, but we have our M240s and we have our grenade launchers and we have our riflemen and our carbines and our this and our that and this and that and that and this and this and that. And yeah, you do. You're on a hunting party with an entire platoon or an entire squad anyway. And we're no longer rifle squads and rifle platoons. That comes prior to World War II, up to the early days of very opening days of World War I, where entire rifle companies, everybody had a rifle. That's why they were called a rifle company. That's why it was called a rifle squad and a rifle platoon. There were no machine guns or grenadiers or flamethrowers or anything else. Hell, I think you were lucky if you had a shovel in there, right? You had rifles, you had bayonets, nothing else. Okay, we don't do that anymore. We have combined armed squads, combined armed platoons, combined armed companies. That has been true since after the first year of World War I. This was very clearly integrated. And so when I go on a patrol with a squad, I've got an M240 medium machine gun and crew to suppress. I've got designated marksmen to look for the enemy RTOs and commanders to kill them. But my machine guns, they'll keep everybody else suppressed, man. They do big groups of people all huddled, together. And yeah, I'll keep you bastards at bay while my DMR is shooting the commander and the RTO guys. And my grenade launcher is covering the dead space. See what's going on here? Well, then my riflemen and carbine, what do they shoot? And they shoot the wolves closest to the sled. This is why in Army qualification anyway, you always, always, always shoot the closest. They beat this into our heads, in some cases literally kicking us in the head. You shoot the closest target first. It presents the greatest danger to your squad. So you always shoot the closest one first. Who shoots the closest one first? Can we shoot them with a grenade launcher? Yes. Can we set up the machine gun? Yes. Can we shoot them with our M9? Can I throw a grenade at them? Yes. But the reality is what's appropriate for this is my rifle and carbine shoot the closest guy. He's 30 meters out. He's 50 meters out. He's 300 meters out. If he's close, my rifle and carbine guys get him because my grenadier is looking for dead space. My machine gunner is looking for mass targets. My designated marksman is shooting for RTOs and anybody that looks important. So what in this whole combined arms, what is the auto rifle hunting for? Very, very simple. I'm glad you asked. They're hunting for crew-served weapons. Turns out that crew-served weapons' primary target are not other crew-served weapons. They're enemy in the open. The crew-served weapons, they are the primary targets of the auto rifleman. And now this was really hammered home in World War II and perfected in Korea, in the Korean conflict, where the BAR men, because the machine gunners would say, well, I'm going to get that enemy's machine gun or whatever, and they would sit down and try to set it up, but they would start dropping, the Chinese, the communists would start dropping mortar rounds on that machine gun team as they tried to set up little tiny 40 millimeter, 60 millimeter mortars. They start dropping all over so they couldn't set up, prevent them, and then they would get their machine gun set up first and play havoc on the U.S. and Allied soldiers. So what happened was we had 2 BARs in every rifle squad. So we started sending those. The rifle squad would set a base of fire, and the auto riflemen would bound to the flanks of the enemy's crew-served weapons and just hose them down. Why? Because I don't need sustained fire for the next 28 minutes. I need a cone of fire on one target, a 3-man mortar crew, and I need it for about a half a magazine, maybe a full magazine. Done. This is the primary target of an auto rifle is rocket men, mortar crews, machine gun crews. That's 3 Nazis walk into a bar and they were carrying, MG2 or, 42, whatever. Point is that that's really what it comes down to, guys. And once again, everybody's going to say, wait, I'm going to carry an auto rifle and the only thing I'm going to shoot is crew-served weapons. Well, you got your hands full on that one. But no, once again, we can go back to that hunting party. You can shoot the bear with your 22. You can. Good luck with that, but you can. But I'm just saying certain weapon systems are better for certain targets. And so there is a target prioritization. This is largely ignored in today's Army. People don't even talk about it anymore, sadly. But we used to say, you guys, you're shooting for this. You guys, you're shooting for that. You guys, we're shooting for that. We not only had target prioritization, we had rules of engagement, not just rules of engagement, principles of engagement, like prioritization of engagement. That's the word I'm looking for. So target prioritization and fires prioritization. And it gets a little complicated, but here's the point. We used to do that, and you got to remember, you're saying, well, that seems awful specialized. Well, damn, there's a whole platoon of us going out. So, yeah, we don't all shoot the bunny rabbit on this hunt.
Well said, Doc.
I mean, how many guys come to One Shepherd? I've heard this all the time. They say, wow, I've been to a lot of training schools, and I really thought super fast reloads of magazines was a critical thing until I came to One Shepherd and realized, wait, I brought 22 of my very best friends with guns. They're like, And they're like, man, I'm so disappointed. I really thought I would have to do like all these high-speed loads, and I really don't. I can take my time, get behind the tree, take a knee, watch the battle a little bit, reload, and back in the fight. I'm like, yeah. And when I was a kid, I swear, I thought quick stand was going to be a far bigger problem than it turned out to be.
I got to point out, somebody said in the comment section that I would have been a BAR gunner in World War II. And I have to correct you because I would have been a machine gunner. So.
Carrying that 1917, charging across the tenor row like John Basilone, right?
Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that Pacific series was just spot on, man. That was a great series. And honestly, for the life of me, like every time they do something like this, some sort of military documentary type series, based on fact and real heroes, not fucking Avengers and all this other shit that is make believe. It always does so well, right? And you would think that Hollywood would get the point, like, hey, do stuff on real freaking guys that are real freaking heroes, not this make believe shit. But they don't do enough, anyways, in my opinion.
I agree. By the way, I watched, of course, years ago, Band of Brothers, and then The Pacific came out, and I watched that. And recently I've watched both of them with my 2 teenage daughters, and I couldn't believe, I'm not joking at all, they were just so wrapped up in it. They're like, Dad, going to watch another 2 episodes tonight? Yeah, we sure are. And we go down, and we'd watch another couple of episodes. And I'm watching, I'm getting about like halfway through one of the series, I forget which it is, and I look and I was like, wow, you guys are really into history. And they look at me like I have lost my mind. They're like, no, Dad, there's a bunch of hot guys. It's like, damn it. But it came back to bite them, right? Because they're like, yeah, there's totally hot guys taking their shirts off. And I was like, oh, okay, now I know. Well, at least you're learning something. And then it came to that moment, where one of them would be killed or like horribly, disfigured. And there's that sober moment where they go, wait, this is real? That's he really died just then? And I'm like, yeah, both of them did. And, and there was that moment where I was just like, whoa, no, that's not right. Like, well, you're right. I mean, this just, it envelops you. It doesn't just immerse you, it envelops you. And I don't know why Hollywood won't get it right. With the success of Band of Brothers, with the success of
Black Hawk Down,
Pacific, and sure, you have Black Hawk Down and other ones too, right? I hear HBO is doing a new series of what I heard a rumor ago late last year was that they're doing one. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it's going to cover the bombers of Europe. It's going to cover like a bomber squadron from England and stuff, which I think would be phenomenal. Because while they didn't lose anywhere near the numbers, the air crews didn't lose anywhere near the numbers, the total numbers of, say, infantry, which took, I think, 70% of all casualties. When you look at the percentage of the casualties for air crews, it's phenomenally high. And I think bombers were the highest of any single kind of combat arms unit. They just took god awful. I've heard things like 55, 60% casualties.
Well, think about it. A B-17 is a crew of 13. Every time one goes down, there goes a squad.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, there's another movie, and if anybody feels like this, because I know at one point I felt like this. So when Letters from Iwo Jima came out, it's directed by Clint Eastwood. I remember when that first came out, I was like, I don't want to watch this shit. I don't give a shit what the Japanese side is. Boy, I'll tell you what, when I watched that movie, I watched it on an airline. They got the free flights. That was a damn good movie. So if you had that mindset of like, now I admitted I used to think like that. If you have that mindset, like, I don't want to watch it from the other side, dude, watch Letters from Iwo Jima. That's a freaking awesome movie, and it really gives you an insight on the other side's perspective. On that.
And it's a true story, so or at least as best as they can piece together, it's a true story. I think the other thing that made that one wash down just a little easier was the crew that were on Iwo Jima were not if I remember correctly, that unit was not deployed to China, was not deployed to the Philippines or Southeast Asia. In short, they had not committed all the atrocities the rest of the Japanese army hadn't. These guys were still honorable, and they were untouched by the shit of the rest of the Japanese forces. And so I think that just made it, all the more bittersweet. But a fantastic film, a fantastic storytelling from the other side. That you do feel a great deal of compassion. One that is not true, but is loosely based on real events, much like Saving Ryan, is I think it's a 4 or 6 part series called Generation War. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from the German side, and it's, of course, about the Russian front. But a lot of people criticize it, said it was a little too agistic, like, oh, these guys were all clean, and their friend, they hid their Jew friend and all this other stuff. Yeah, well, like I said, it's trying to show a full range. It's a fiction piece, and it's trying to show the full range. And the reality was there were Germans who tried to help Jews. And the reality is that not all, also in the story, not everybody's a good guy. You definitely see bad Germans. They don't hide that. You definitely see bad Germans in that series. It's a mini series. I want to say it's like 4 or 6 episodes, it seems to me, but definitely worth your time. And while it doesn't ring true as some of the real historical accounts, such as Letters Home from Iwo Jima, it still holds its own, and it's still worth your time. And then one more I'll say about that, we don't see nearly enough, is World War I. Have you seen, so that's Generation War, and Our World War is what it's called. Our World War, I want to say it's 4 stories. It's 4 stories, each one about an hour and a half long. So it's like 4 different movies. And it starts at the beginning, like one of the very first battles that the British are in. And then it fast forwards. It follows a British, the British Expeditionary Force. And so I want to say the last one is at the very end of the war. The very first one is the very first opening days of the war. And then you have 2, like one of them I remember follows a tank company. And it just follows them into like the Battle of Cambrai and stuff like that. So anyway, I mean, really, really well done. And I agree with you. I wish Hollywood and other producers would spend more time in that, because, I mean, frankly, it's more pertinent. I think it engages you far more. I don't know why they don't.
Hey, unless Les has something to say on this. Because we definitely went down a rabbit hole about war movies. So I do want to get back on topic. I just want to close this topic again, unless Les has something else to say. But the #1 movie in China, at least a couple weeks ago, was a movie that they just released about the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. So the Chi-Com's perspective fighting against Marines. Now, obviously, it's a bunch of political garbage, but I just want to put you guys in the mindset of what they're putting out, conditioning their people to, as opposed to what we got coming out in our theaters. So
valid point. And throughout history, regimes are famous for that. Like, the Soviets, the Second World War, put out Alexander Nevsky, bringing back the hero of the motherland. Germany made all kinds of films, showing how good they were in the First World War. And, Britain did it too. I mean, some of the films they made at the beginning of the Second World War, were the epitome of jingoism. And, it just shows, you're right, Brandon. It just shows the Chinese are preparing and we're not.
Yeah. All right. This is such a great topic to talk about, but we got to get back. I do got to say one more thing. Or last shot. Swear to God, save round. Weird. I think about like LERPs and SOG and stuff, and like the incredible stories that these guys have had. How are they not making movies about this shit? We put out, Bruce and I did a but we did a YouTube video about LERPs, and it's got millions of views, guys, of views. Like, there is an unbelievable hunger to see this kind of stuff. Talking about real heroes in real war. It doesn't even have to be a historically factual a film. It can be nonfiction or fiction film or whatever. Both will be extremely successful, I guarantee. So with that said, let's get back to our automatic rifleman conversation here. And I think we should talk about civilians, right? So we know, or at least I know we all know, that everybody in this chat, probably the overwhelming majority, are not military currently serving. They're civilians. And there's a lot of people that are, that partake in militia groups, armed citizenry, and they're probably wondering, hey, what weapon can we use as a civilian that's actually obtainable? Because yes, you can obtain a fully automatic weapon for an automatic rifleman role in the civilian world, but you're going to have to pay out the ass. The federal government has regulated these things to the point of
unobtainium, basically.
Yes, unbelievable. To buy a fully automatic M16A1 would probably cost you 30-40 grand, which is just ludicrous.
Yep.
So with that being said, what are some civilian options that could supplement let's say a militia, an armed prepared citizen squad or fire team that wants to have that automatic rifleman role in their fire team? What are some things that they could use?
Well, I'm glad. I was hoping the topic would go in this direction, because I've kind of been exploring that myself, and I have 2 rifles in my collection that kind of fulfill that role. The first one I'm going to call a successful failure, and I built it around an AR with a 16-inch heavy barrel, and I applied the Black Label bipod system to it. So the rifle is capable of sustained fire. I've put a trigger in it from KE Arms. They call it their DMR trigger. It's a nice, light, consistent trigger, and very able to put out a nice volume of fire, probably in the 350 to 400 RPM range. And the bipod tucks up as part of the handguards. And overall, it's heavy for an AR, but way lighter than carrying an equivalent automatic rifle. And I say it's a successful failure because I've used it in competition twice, specifically Finnish Brutality, if anybody wants to go back into my playlist and check it out. And the system just doesn't stand up to a brutal competition like that. So it's not going to stand up in a real fight. So it's not a rifle to bet your life on. The other system that's had a lot more success is using one of Klein Machine's uppers. I was one of the first ones to go with that, with the M60 bipod. Brent, I think you've got the one with the RPK bipod. And that has performed wonderfully. Chris, you were there at the competition I used it in, and when I went prone with that thing, it decimated every target out there. And one of the nice things about the system, the way the bipod plays, is reloading is very easy. You flip it to the side, the force flips the mag out, you get your new one in, and you can pick up your fire right away. So much easier to reload and keep up a sustained fire with it as compared to other auto rifles. And for a trigger, I haven't gone binary on it because I am still not convinced with live rounds binary is the greatest option. But I have put KE Arms SLT trigger into it, and my video I did on that upper, I compared the SLT to a binary trigger, and the rates of fire weren't that significantly different. I mean, you're still putting out about 350, 400 RPM just as fast as you can work your trigger finger, and that's going to keep somebody suppressed. So that's where I would go. That's where I've gone, I should say. And if anybody wants a real sustained fire rifle in 5.56, I would seriously look at Klein Machine's uppers.
That's what I was going to say, Brent, was same thing, is that, look, I'm biased here. One Shepherd has purchased all of our LSWs, light support weapons, are manufactured by Klein Machining. And so he does an LSW for us. That's with it's essentially the same thing as his ARPK upper, but instead of an RPK bipod, it is an M60 type bipod. But that's remarkably similar. Heavy barrel, 20-inch. Ours are, you can get them in different sizes. Ours are all 20-inch heavy barrels. And I find that with that, you can, it's a, why go with the heavy barrel? Well, it just takes so much more abuse. And at One Shepherd, you've always got some some noob guy just banging against rocks and trees. Does this work? You know, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, oh, thank God we put a heavy barrel on that.
Yeah, for one shepherd that might be the case, but in real life, you need that heavy barrel to act as a heat sink for putting out continuous volume of fire.
That's true. Too.
In the automatic rifleman role, a heavy barrel, I would say, is essential, because if the M16A1 is proof, you know, you put a bifod on it and lay down in the prone, and you will change the point of impact by up to 2 feet at 200 yards.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the thin pencil barrels and the profile barrels get just glowing hot after like seriously 3 to 5 magazines, and you're like, whoa. And so this is something that the heavy barrel takes that kind of abuse much better. I'll say this: I agree with you, Les, that you could go with a Geisley 3D, what's it called, the 3DSG, I think is what it's called, but whatever. I mean, they've got some speed triggers out there. And everything I'm going to talk about, by the way, is as far as definition, is legally a semi-auto, and so you can. I mean, there's people who just go with a standard USGI trigger. There's some kid I watched on YouTube, and he's like, watch 1,000 rounds a minute. He lays prone. It's not a rubber band trick. He's not bump firing. He lays prone, and he gets his finger working so quick. Somehow that kid, he's like 17 years old. He rips out a 1,000-round burst, a 30-round mag at a rate of 1,000 RPM. Now I'm not counting the bullets, but I'm telling you, I know what 7 and 750 sound like. This is way faster. And so he did that. Now, I've heard several people or in that commentary saying, yeah, I can come close to that myself, but it did take me 2,000 rounds to learn to do it, right? So it's a matter of learning. But what you have with other things like binary triggers, wide open trigger, forced reset trigger, Geisley SD3G, all of these things allow you to get a really quick reset. That's the big thing with the AR. And who's kidding who? In terms of military rifles, the AR-15, we're spoiled. We are spoiled. That is such a damn fine trigger right out of the box for a military rifle. And then you start putting on these aftermarket, short resets. Holy mother of God. You can really put some rounds out there quickly. I went with the Fostech Echo 2 binary trigger for one Shepherd LSWs for a very simple reason. Let me cut through the chase. Everything else we tried, like everything we were trying for 2 years, Klein Machining did all the research for us, and he would come show us, and they're like, look, it's overwriting. I don't understand in my mind how a trigger, messes up the picking up the rounds, but with the M200 blank cartridge, which is what one Shepherd used because it's all force on force with miles gear, with that, it would override it. And so the only one that didn't, that just consistently picked it up, no matter what magazine I throw in, it works for that M200 blank, was the Fostech Echo 2 binary trigger. So I see the wide open trigger, the FRT, man, those things look phenomenal. But here's another reason. Again, my biggest reason, I'm just being honest about it, is that it worked with the M200 blank cartridge. But beyond that, man, this really struck home at the 40th. And I don't know how much you guys were paying attention to it because you were running the battles, but being an observer controller, I could sit back and watch. And I would see guys sit there and like duke it out, and guys would flip to full auto, whether they had a rifle or whether they had an LSW with a full auto version. And they would flip the full auto, and there's no controlling that. You guys know. What I mean is controlling the rate of fire. Once you're on full auto, you're on full auto. And they're going, brrr, 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 and I'm like, yeah, you're just burning. Where the guy with the LSW binary, he'd flip the binary and he'd go pop, 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 pop. And then out of the bushes, 40 meters away, 6 guys see up and start to bum rush him. And he goes, oh, crap. Without changing anything, he just goes, oh, my God, I thought I was shooting a suppressive fire down there. Out of the creek bed comes 6 guys 40 meters away. And this guy just speeds up his, let me get here. He just speeds up that trigger and he goes, brrr. And so what I'm saying is he went from a 200 rounds RPM, and then just because the target presented itself in a quarter of a second, he changed and he went to 700 RPM from 200 RPM. the controllability of that binary trigger has me seriously questioning, shouldn't the M27 all have binary triggers? Because that's one controllable trigger. You think it, and that's what your gun does. Rates of fire. Wonderful.
Yeah, and if you guys want proof of that, go watch that FTX video I just uploaded a few days ago. You hear the firefights going on. Now, granted, there were a couple guys there that actually had registered fully automatic lowers that they brought, but the vast majority of the LSW gunners out there had binary triggers. And by God, you would think you were listening to full automatic fire going on. If you just watch, I mean, I was there, I lived it, Les did too. It sounded like realistic firefights going on. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So, I mean, I don't have that much experience with those binary triggers, but just from, hearing auditory, listening to these fights going on and the casualties that were produced. I put one machine gunner when we first set in our defense. I had my furthest right fighting position. It was a 2-man position, and one of those I wanted to ensure was a light support weapon. And I told the squad leader there, so he put a guy there. And when I was briefed by our reconnaissance element, who actually got eyes on the enemy's casualty collection point, he's like, dude, he's like, that guy you put over there with that LSW took out like 8 guys.
I think it was more than 8. I'm not joking. They lost 27 warriors in that attack. I know which one you're talking about because they wipe out like 3 or 4 fighting positions. I think it's 3. They wipe out 3, and you know where I'm talking about, up in that one little section. But the anchor, your guy's far right anchor, it was a rifleman and a guy with an LSW. Holy mother of God, they put the hurt on the Blue 4. I want to say, so they lost 27 casualties. I was the OC that was, respawning everybody and getting their miles to stop beeping at the casualty collection point. And 8, I think 8's a little low. It might have been closer to 10 or 12. And he's the only, that position was the only position that survived because, the Blue 4 just ran in and overran that whole area. But those two just hunkered in. And I heard him say he's like, holy crap, I just burned through 6 magazines. I was like, well, yeah, bud, you were holding the entire line.
It's funny. It's funny because Les and I were in the dead zone with a bunch of guys. And I think I remember, Les, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember we were consolidating after everybody got respawned and everything. And we were, repositioning our lines and getting people back in their original positions. And that guy was like, yeah, I shot 8 magazines. And we're like, what do you mean you shot 8 magazines? I'm like, we're ribbing this guy, getting into his ass about it. And it's like, he's one of the main contributing factors of saving the day. But we had no idea at the time. We're just like, what do you mean you ripped through 8 magazines? Blah, blah, blah. But we had no idea this guy had taken out freaking half the enemy's assault force.
Yeah.
Super.
That's one of the saving graces because one of the things I've learned at One Shepherd, when you're PL or APL, you're not shooting that much unless you have really low numbers on your side.
Yeah.
So I guarantee out of my 7 mags, I think I handed out 5. And I still turned rounds in when it was all said and done. And I guess that's the reason why, because you have LSW gunners. But those guys really did save the day in that first day because kudos to Captain Felix and Mike Bolam at the APL there on the Missouri Militia. They did a textbook Vanguard attack. They slammed into us. We were not prepared yet. I'd shudder to think if they'd showed up 15 minutes earlier. I don't think we would have held, to be honest. And 15 minutes later, I think the bloodletting would have been harder with less on our side. I mean, he just had the advantage of being at the right time, using the right tactics, and just having the right weapon system is what saved us.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys jumping on asking, I'm sorry, we should give some context. I just assume everybody knows what One Shepherd is. A couple of people said, what are you guys talking about? And one guy's like, why would you not? Yeah, Chuck Norris Gun Club says, why would you not have artillery? We did. But you use it when you, I guess, don't need the element of surprise. These guys had the element of surprise. But the point is that this is One Shepherd Leadership Institute. So it is open to civilians and military alike, really. First responders, emergency service guys, military, and civilians. Yep. Yeah. But it is a leadership development program. I'll just plug it a little bit, but the important thing that we're talking about is every semester is 7 days. So you go through 4 days of training, but you are getting good, decent sleep and good food. And then you go for broke for 3 days. You just go 3 days straight, nonstop on a mission or several missions. And the two sides, the Op 4, all the students break into an Op 4 and a Blue 4, and they just fight it out for 3 days straight. When you're saying fight it out with what? Blank ammunition and Miles gear. Miles gear is multiple integrated laser engagement systems. It's what the United States Army and the Marines have been using since the 1977 to score kills on each other. You'll see guys wearing like dots around their helmets and all this stuff. But it's a weapon system that actually, when you fire the blank, it knows what weapon system you're shooting. Yes, tanks use it. Yes, attack helicopters and jet fighters and machine guns and everything else. And rocket launchers, everything uses it, but so do rifles and carbines. And so they shoot each other. And so, yeah, you can kill each other at a half mile. If you can see it and you know what you're doing, you'll get a half mile kill. Point is that that's what we use at One Shepherd. And the war games themselves are used because you train for 4 days on small unit tactics and leadership. Then this is where we create those command experiences, is in that FTX. You need to tell all your instructors, look, go piss up a rope somewhere. I don't need you anymore. I need to go out here and be a leader. And it's very experiential learning. And so what we're doing is small unit tactics in that. We're stealing this if the military guys go, oh, that's ROTC or OCS and NCO academies, and yeah, right, exactly. We totally ripped off the military. It's absolute plagiarism. That's what we do. But we do this in the civilian realm. You will see lots of honestly, you'll see lots of military who come. And we just finished up our 40th year anniversary last fall at the fall semester, whereby you've probably already heard us. We actually got Hueys in, and we did air assault insertions and everything else. So it's war games for the big boys. And so yeah, if you're interested in that, come join us. Yes, we do simulate artillery. It's pretty rare, but oh yeah, both sides last fall got smashed by artillery. I mean, hit hard. So yeah, we simulate that too.
And I'd like to address one of the comments I saw come up on the side. This guy said on active duty, Miles never worked. I was right there with you. And then One Shepherd opened my eyes on that. Because unlike the military, where you're issued your miles, you bolt it onto the weapon, have Private Smuckatelli stand about 25 meters away, and everybody takes a pot shot. And if his miles beeps, you must be zeroed. And then they go off. And if he doesn't beep, you figure out where you have to aim to get him to beep. And you just have to remember, gee, I got to aim 3 privates right to get a hit. Miles doesn't work like that. And I can tell you, we're getting ready to have a big working party on all the miles here to get it up to spec, ready for the 2022's fighting season, for lack of better terminology. Mm-hmm. And we're going to spend an entire day. 2 guys will do nothing but checking and re-verifying zeros. It takes a good solid 10 to 20 minutes to get a rifle zeroed properly with Miles, but it pays off. Because at One Shepherd, I've seen 400-meter kills, and I've seen them with boring regularity. You walk out into an open field where somebody's in that tree line with Miles, you're getting hit.
I mean,
it's going to happen.
I've not only seen headshots at 200 meters with, fairly routine. I got pegged in the head. It was night. I had night vision on. I saw it. I can tell you who did it. It was Jason Snyder, 200 meters, not feet. 200 meters, pitch black night, but of course we use nods and everything else, and that bastard shot me right in the head at 200 meters at night. So yeah, it definitely works. And I remember the days of Gen 1, 2, 3 miles, where you're taking your MRE cardboard and trying to fasten it on so it would not slip around, and oh man, it was garbage. And there was 100 ways to cheat with it. We have Miles 2000, cubic manufactured Miles 2000 at One Shepherd. And we're not the only ones, by the way. S&S has them. Klein Machining has them. We are the first to introduce it to the civilian world, but we're not any longer the only people that have this for training and available to civilians. But the point is that Miles 2000 came out in 1999, and the Marine Corps said, no joke, this is a quote from some some Marine colonel, full bird. They came out, they demonstrated, he shot it, he set it down on the table and went, great. Now you've gone the other way. Before, it couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. Now you've made it more accurate than bullets. Not fair. Because it's a laser. And once they figured out how to mount this damn thing, oh, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. But I think the biggest thing, and I hear my two Marines here talk about this all the time, so true. Where do you get your miles in the Army? You go to Task C, and some contractors overlooking 3 PFCs who are going, here's your stuff, take it. Here's your stuff, take it. It's broken. I mean, it's broken. It's unmaintained. They're just issuing it to you. And we all thought, miles sucks. It turns out, no, not at all. Stuff is brilliant.
I'll fully admit I'm a convert on it. I don't know about you, Brent, but like I went from hating that and stuff. And I've got friends I'm trying to get to one Shepherd, and I say 3 things and immediately turn them off: radios, blanks, and miles. And they don't believe me. No, miles works. The radios work. The blanks don't jam, and they just look at it and go, Les, you're full of shit.
It's so true. Yeah, I had the same preconceived notions because of my experience in the military using miles. They just give it to some PFC Lance Corporal to mount, and like the comment I just pinned, like it's like 20 minutes to 0. I had 5 minutes. But I mean, there's so many things I've picked up going to one Shepherd that I've learned over the years, and just being in the Marine Corps long enough and seeing stuff like M240s and blanks as a young machine gunner. Like that was one thing I was like, yeah, that shit never work, man. You get a burst and you have to rack it, and then get another burst maybe, and then rack it again. And then unfortunately, a lot of that stuff will make it into what's colloquially known as the bush monster. But I found out that there was a little block that was specifically designed for the feed tray, the M240, that was going in there that would help feed those Sim62 by 51 millimeter length blanks better to make them work properly. And I didn't even know that thing existed until I saw it advertised on some civilian website as like USGI surplus. I'm like, USGI surplus? I've never even seen that thing before. No freaking wonder they never worked.
All right, so I got a war story then to tell on this one, and I feel stupid. I really do. I'll just call myself out on this. So when I was way back in the day, when I was in the Army, and I was in 4 different regiments, and every time I would go to a new regiment, every regiment I was in, as soon as they were issued the A2s, by the way, that's when I knew I was going to PCS. Like they're like, hey, we got these brand new beautiful weapons for you. Not you. You go to the new regiment. And I was like, okay. So then I would go to a new regiment, and they'd have A1s. So I spent a disproportionate amount of my time, having served from 85 to 94, with A1s, A1 rifles. I hated miles. Oh yeah, man, excellent. Yeah, exactly. I thought I hated miles too. Anyway, so I go there, and this is just like, this happened so many times. So we kept seeing the apertures on that rear sight, and we're like, they're the same. One's got an L, one doesn't. They're the same. We measured them. We did all sorts of, we're like, it's the same. What is it? No one told us. So we're like, okay, whatever. So you zero at 25, and then it comes in at 300. Here's what they never told us. And I only learned this, I'm not joking, maybe 5 years ago. I'm reading, somebody says, have you seen this? Sent me a PDF of the TM. I'm looking at this, and it's showing that the second one that's marked L is supposed to be zeroed at 25. 25 meters, 0, 300 meters strike. I'm like, yeah, duh. I knew that. Then he says, look at this. You flip to the other one. You're supposed to zero that at 42 meters for a 200 meter strike. And what it does is it keeps a super flat shooting trajectory out to 200, and then it starts to drop like a rock. So for any targets past 200, you're supposed to flip to the L and shoot there from 200 to 500, you're supposed to be shooting on the L. Well, no one ever taught us that. And then we know why. Because all those NCOs standing there at BRM trying to get you qualified, they don't want you, because Army is very, very much on the time. You're given 2 targets at a time. They come up, and you've got to fire the close one, then you fire the next one. And they don't want you going 150, pop, 150, 300. So you go 150, pop. Hold on, let me screw with my sight a little bit. That 300's already down. And they're getting so frustrated with people not qualifying because they're messing with it, they just absolutely stop teaching it. This is a sin. They might have gotten people killed doing this, but this is what they did. They just stopped teaching us how to use it properly because it was inconvenient to them on the firing range.
You're talking about the elevation drum on the A2 site?
No, I'm talking about the
A1.
A1.
The A1 flip site.
Oh,
A1s had a flip sight too, but they were identical. Yes, they were identical. You were supposed to shoot 1 at 25 and 1 at 42. In my 9 years in the United States Army, I never once zeroed at 42, and no one ever brought it up. And I find out
same thing. Switching over to the National Guard after I left Marine Corps active duty. So, when you showed up at the National Guard, they were like, "Oh, Marines, you're in charge of marksmanship." Of course, they gave us like no time to teach it, but that was just their solution because it was an accepted thing that as Marines we could shoot better than everybody else, and we could.
Yeah, because the Army's. They're like Army. Honestly, their qualification makes far more sense to me than any Marine rifle qualification. But it's not that. It's
throwing down a gauntlet there, huh?
Well, I'll stand by that too. But it's not that. The thing is that the Marines actually teach their Marines to shoot. The Army doesn't, and that pissed me off. Finding that out all those years later, going, "Son of a bitch, this makes so much sense." Somebody sat and thought it through and said, this is what it is. That probably comes from 1959, the Arm Light Rifle. And they thought this through and said, this is how it's going to work. And the Army violated. You see this all the damn time. I mean, we had to have guys from miles come to us. Like, these are techs, these are civilians, and say, oh, here, let me show you how to use miles. They did this when One Shepherd bought miles gear. And we were like, wait, it works how? And they're like, oh, yeah. And they show you how. They get out their computer. They set it all up. My mind was blown. I was like, this is the smartest stuff in the world. Why didn't you ever tell us that? And they're like, oh, you were a soldier. The Army didn't give a damn.
Hey, somebody just pointed this out in the comments. I was going to say this too. Marine Corps came out with a new rifle qualification. So I can't speak intelligently to it because I haven't shot it yet, but it is more combat oriented as opposed to our last known distance, which apparently hasn't changed since like freaking World War I or something.
Well, no, the KD range that we all learned on Brent was it does a very specific thing. It teaches the purity of marksmanship. It is a pure marksmanship test.
Right.
I mean, its applicability in combat is questionable at best. But let's be honest, you go to boot camp, especially a kid of the 80s growing up reading Soldier of Fortune, SWAT magazine. I knew the fact that the M16 was a mouse gun and can't hit anything beyond 300 meters, and then you go to boot camp and the first thing you find out on the first day at the rifle range is you better hit at 500 meters because if you don't, you won't qual. And what do you know? You can hit at 500 meters. Not only that, you can hit very easily and consistently if you learn how to do it. And, I will give credit to my PMIs at Parris Island. By the time rifle range was over, I could consistently hit 500 meters without a problem. They did their job very well.
To my knowledge, the only people in the Army that shoots 500-meter KD ranges is the infantry. I mean, I'm sure special forces and stuff like that, but you know what I'm saying? Infantry. I never saw another unit out using 500-meter KD ranges. We had 300-meter KD ranges also. But anyway, I never saw anybody out at 500 KD range except infantry units. So I quickly assessed that. It didn't take somebody that intelligent to go, oh, the Marine. What I wanted was the Marine BRM training and the Army qualification. That just seemed, because the Army qualification is pretty damn logical.
I'll call BS on the Army thing because in the National Guard we had to do the Army thing on one drill weekend a year and stuff. And I would debate any training value I got because you go to the range, the 50-yard target pops up. It's got a hole this big in the center. You fire and it doesn't go down. And then they'll lie to you on the range. Like, it's not the impact of the bullet that makes the target goes down. It's the sound of the bullet passing the target. Which
not
is bullshit.
Bullshit. Okay, so once again, yeah, the equipment being
used. Carlos Hathcock capabilities. When the 300-yard target comes up and all that happens is a bush wiggles because the range is so overgrown, even Carlos Hathcock cannot hit what he cannot see. But then the solution to that is you don't know how to shoot. Wait, really? I qualified expert Marine Corps. I fucking know how to shoot better than anybody on an Army range.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, that's fair criticism of the Army, and you're not going to offend me. I got to get to that other guy's comment, but you're not going to offend me by beating up the Army. The Army deserves to be beat up. But when you look at how the field is supposed to be mowed and how the plastic and the range targets are supposed to operate when they're properly maintained, no, it's actually a really smart system. It's just that, as we said, these systems are intelligent, just like Miles. They're very, very well designed. And often very well made. They're just very badly maintained. And yes, Chuck Norris, soldiers love to bitch about the Army. It's our pastime. It's kind of a passion. I mean, it's kind of my medium, really. I'm an artist. Yes, we soldiers love our regiments. We hate the Army. In fact, if I hear another soldier saying, I love the Army, we're all just like, oh, geez. I mean, you're on the spectrum, aren't you? It's just like, what the hell? How can you? I see this like on bumper stickers, like, I see like, whatever, go U.S. Army or U.S. Army, all for one. It's all about me, whatever. I'm the star of the show. It doesn't matter what the bumper sticker is. Every time I see one of those, I think, that better be your mom. That better be your mom, dude. If I see you getting out of that truck, I'm going to let you have it. Now, I never say that when I see someone's regiment there. I'm like, yeah, badass. But I don't feel a reason to be proud of the Army. That's a difference between the Army and the Marines. I get it.
Yeah, I literally spent like 20 minutes today BSing with a police officer at an airport because I had to go ask him a question about something. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but anyways, I was talking to him and I noticed that he had this like key, whatever those called, those little lanyards that you wear around your neck have keys on them. It was a Marine lanyard, but on that he had a pin that said 1-1, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines. Well, they're at Horno with 1-4, where my 1st Infantry Battalion I served with. I started talking to this dude, like I talked to him for like 20 minutes, man, about just Marine shit. Like I never even met this guy before, and it was just like you would have thought we were best of buds. So there's a camaraderie between Marines. It's uncanny.
Oh, well, don't get me wrong. Soldiers have a camaraderie too. It's kind of like blood feeding frenzy of sharks. When there's something dead in the air, in the water, all the sharks come. And that is the Army, bleeding out in the water, and all the soldiers come by to take a bite because we hate them. We hate them. I hate them.
Well, that's, at Bagram, I could tell which units had passed through. You go into the porta shitter, and of course, there's a bunch of dicks drawn it. So obviously the Marines were there, but then you'd see FTA and like, fuck the Army. It's like, oh, okay. The Airborne's been here too.
Felicia Teresa Allen. Yep.
Yeah, I got so many funny stories I could tell Army Marines, but maybe save that for another day. So I don't know. Did we exhaust our original topic?
Yeah. So where are we with that? So I think someone else also said like RPKs. Are there other auto rifles? Sure. There's the L86. The LSW is used by Canada and the Dutch, I believe, use the LSW. And I said the L86, the RPK. The Russians use many variations of the RPK. What are some other variations out right now of that? I mean, we brought up like
much covered them all right there. I mean, the Germans made an LSW version of the G36, but they never really deployed it. It was kind of a sales failure, just like they were for the G3 and the HK33. They weren't popular. There was an LSW version of the FAL. It didn't really work that well.
Yeah, I remember the FAL efforts to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that comes about an automatic rifle is it has to be a dedicated machine. It can't be a modification of an infantry rifle. You can probably more successfully turn an LMG into an automatic rifle than you can take a regular rifle and make it an LSW or a weapon like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's just the other thing is once you understand what you're building a rifle to do, and again, the LSW or squad automatic rifle can shoot, the enemy commander. It can You know, it can lay suppressing fire. It can do just about anything else that a direct fire system can be. But what's its primary mission? And when you say, oh, my primary mission is that I'm hunting other, enemy crew served weapons, then you have to start building a weapon that does that specifically, that it does it very, very well. One of the things I noticed was the BAR, 1918 BAR issued 10 magazines. Well, lo and behold, the LSW squad automatic rifle, that is its basic load, compared to 7 magazines, which is your standard Rifleman basic load, 10 for the automatic Rifleman. And so you outfit them, you organize them so that they can have the effect, their intended effect on the enemy, and again, and that enemy target. So yeah, I think heavier barrels, bipod or not, some people just don't like the bipod. And when Les was shooting with it on a 2-gun competition, as he pointed out, Jesus, when he went prone every time, he just nailed the living crap out of everything at downrange. It was wonderful. What was funny was watching him try to do well-aimed fires at a dead run, come to a stop offhand, and that bipod's going rink, 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 rink.
Yeah, accuracy suffered a little in that.
And I was just going, go binary, just go binary. It doesn't matter at this point, so maybe you'll hit something. So you need to build a dedicated weapon for that. I think optics are a big thing about that, not just your red dot systems, but also something that you can use in tandem with night vision that is mounted directly to the weapon system. So there's a lot to think about. But there's also some really cool solutions. And of course, I think all 3 of us are going to recommend an AR-15 of some type, because who's kidding who? It is the grown man's Legos. Finally, they made a Barbie doll for men. It's called an AR-15, so that we can accessorize, and I can match my uniforms with it and get my nails done. All right.
I'll throw in the fact that if you're civilian and you feel you need an LSW, first thing you should say, how many of your friends have regular rifles? Because if you're going to be an LSW gunner by yourself, even if you only have semi-auto capability, you're making a heck of a mistake. The second thing is your sighting system becomes exponentially more important. And personally, I would recommend that if you're not going to have your personal night vision requirement, I forget the exact designation, it's a 1.5 ACOG from Trijicon. That is hard to beat as an LSW sight if you do not need a night vision capability. And despite all its detractors out there, I'm coming around to the fact that for an LSW in that role, if you need night vision capability, the MRO is quickly, in my testing, becoming the answer for all its detractors out there. That's a role it seems to work really good in.
I have to admit, it's had its detractors. The MRO has people who love it and people who hate it, but they're all talking about rifles and carbines. For the LSW, that thing seems to be, I have to admit, that's one that's winning me over. I didn't come to that one easily. But it also
it has some limitations in a competition environment. But using it in the field on an LSW, it's working really good. It's very night vision compatible. It doesn't take a lot of real estate on your rifle. It is hard to argue with.
Just a single red dot, though, isn't it?
It is a single red dot, and I would prefer if it had an EOTech style reticle. But compared to the EOTech, you're getting way better battery life. I mean, orders of magnitude. Basically, you can turn the damn thing on and leave it on until you go to Valhalla. It mates up to a PVS 14 really well. And like I said, it doesn't take a lot of real estate on your rifle. It doesn't add a lot of weight to your LSW. And the problems I found have been in a competition environment on a rifle, and those factors just don't apply to an LSW.
What's ours weighing in, like loaded and unloaded? What is it, like 11 pounds unloaded, 12 pounds loaded?
I think so. We haven't really done that's all guesstimate weights we've been making. We probably should weigh it up just to find out. I would definitely say, 11, 12 pounds is right where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. Super maneuverable. We went with the 20-inch barrel for several different reasons, and it was recommended by Klein Machining for that. But your point isn't lost. You're right. You got to start thinking about teams. Now, if your name is Brent, apparently you can buy yourself an LSW and then get yourself a machine gun, and then go ahead and get the DMR and everything else, so that you just have a smorgasbord of firearms. And apparently everyone loves them and sends these to them in the mail. So
I wish.
Yeah. Hey, I want to address this one comment from Chewing Bubblegum. Is Elcan Spectre good optic for a DMR? No, stay away from the Spectre. Absolutely 100%, because it's only got 2 magnifications, 1 and 4x, and when you flip between the two, your 0 shifts.
Ooh.
See, hey, I'm gonna throw a counterpoint here, because I'm gonna say nay to the MRO just because it's a single red dot. I want that BDC. So on my Klein machining AR freaking RPK, I actually had an extra ACOG, my original ACOG that I bought before I got the TA31 with ACSS. So I put my original ACOG on that, and dude, when I did the video on that Klein machining upper, that's what I was using. So I mean, that thing is awesome. And going out to Nevada and shooting out there in the deserts at great distances, man, you gotta have that BDC. You go out there with a red dot, you aren't hitting shit. You're talking man-sized target, you aren't hitting anything. BDC is not perfect, but it's close enough. It's close enough to put around on a person. So
that's an excellent point.
That's why I say I got that 1.5 ACOG on mine for the one I don't have a night vision requirement for. I mean,
that's an excellent point too. That's an excellent point. And what I was going to say is, like Les and I were talking about, look, if you're going to be the LSW gunner, the squad automatic rifleman in your 4-man, 6-man buddy team, that's great. Make sure that they have other weapon systems that augment. Make sure that one of them, the best in the shooter, is your DMR, right? And make sure the other guys have some good carbines and rifles. So that's a cool way to go about it. And then I say, then build your weapon system to its mission. But you bring up a good point. Also, build up as a combined arms, build your weapon system to that mission, but also realize what element and what environment you're in. Alpha Company's out there in the Ozarks in Missouri. And, 400-meter shots are, they happen, but they're hard to come by out there. And that's Alpha Company. And Bravo Company's out here in West Virginia in the Appalachians. And once again, that's true. You see 300 and 400-meter shots, but they're not that common. Mostly you're shooting at 100 and 200 meters. Now, Charlie Company, when we stand that thing up in the Southwest, man, that's one of those things where it almost starts to feel like airsoft. You're looking out there at 1,400 meters and you're seeing an enemy patrol that you're like, yeah, guys, they're out of range. We can't even engage them yet. Let's get another 600 meters in, and then we can start to suppress. When you come to that, suddenly your optics have to make sense. And I would agree that a red dot, you're right. You're going to need something more sophisticated than a red dot out there. So, when I say build to your mission and build to your target, that also means take your environment into consideration too. I agree.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, here in Bravo Company, getting beyond 300 yards is tough. And that's not just dictated by our training area. That's like anywhere you want to go in Virginia, West Virginia, getting beyond 300 yards is tough. So, like say, build to your thing. And if we were out in the high desert of Arizona, Utah, we need to be prepared to go 500 at a minimum.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, but I mean, what's exciting to me is that this is, like I said, this is available. And as Brent said, sure, you can drop to $26,000 for a full auto transferable lower. You can. And, if you've got that in the budget, hallelujah, brother, do it. But I got to tell you, start working with some of these wide open triggers, force reset triggers, Geisley SD3G, and either a Franklin Armory binary or the Fostech binary. I'm telling you, you'll find one. They're very, very affordable, typically $300 to $500 each. Some of them even a little less than that. And I'm telling you, you'll find the controllability of those rates of fire are just amazing. So you have options that are every bit, in my opinion, every bit as appropriate as a full auto trigger. And again, what's cool is like, with an AR-15, you can go designated marksman, auto rifle. You can have a rifle, and carbines. You can do sub carbines. You got guys who say, no, I got the full auto lower. Don't put that on your auto rifle. Go get yourself the MCR belt fed upper, and now you got a light machine gun for your team, right? And so there's just so many wonderful things you can do with that AR-15. Mike Klein talks about that, where he says it's like open source and free source software, where AR-15s became both open source and free source. That is, once it went past before it went to its end of its patent date, it did collaboration with other companies. And then once it got past that and it opened up for everybody, it's crowdsourced. It's a crowdsourced solution. I think that's why the AR-15 is so phenomenally successful, is because it's not the military dictating what this thing looks like, how it functions, or anything else. It truly is the American citizen saying, I want this to happen, and somebody wants to make a dime off of it. And so it's just amazing. I think, it may be the pinnacle of powder firearms. It might be laser blasters, a la Star Wars, before we see something significantly different than the AR-15. And again, I don't care if the United States Army goes under some contract and decides that, they're going to go back to the Springfield .3, bolt action rifle. Whatever they do to, because this senator wants to make money after that, that doesn't matter. Cat's out of the bag. The American people love the AR-15, and it has just become ubiquitous around the world. So like I said, there's just so many solutions. You can change it from a pistol caliber submachine gun to a belt-fed, tripod-mounted machine gun, to a sniper rifle, to everything. And auto rifle should be one of those in your book. Seriously, like if you've got a group of friends, it doesn't have to be you, but start talking to them and saying, hey, yeah, which one of us is going to be the auto rifle?
Yeah. And to address Justin Carmelo's comment here, where can you get a Klein machine upper? Tomorrow I'll be releasing a video about an interview I did with Mike Klein and how he came around to build it, and we'll have contact information in there. So just check into my channel tomorrow and you'll see where to get a Klein machine upper.
Yeah, and I want to point out, so a lot of the infantry videos that I put out, I see comments all the time, like, because I'm talking about military doctrine in my videos, and referring to automatic riflemen and automatic weapons and stuff, and people post all the time like, hey, we're civilians, we don't have that stuff. How do we do this, dude? We for all the reasons we just talked about over the last like 30 minutes to an hour, like you can get a very viable civilian built light support weapon. Yeah, it might be only semi-automatic, or it could have a binary trigger, and you're getting a very close. You're getting like a 75% solution, in my opinion. And you go set a camera down at the berm, and then just lay into that bipod, put that shoulder pressure into it, and let loose, man. Let them rounds fly, and then go watch that video about those impacts, and tell me that that's not effective suppression on that target. So
absolutely.
You can get a very, very viable, even with just a standard USGI trigger, you can still get a very high volume of fire. If you got shoulder pressure and everything, a bipod on one of these light support weapons that you've built, they can be a very viable option. You can absolutely have an automatic rifleman in your civilian fire team if you're in one of these, armed prepared citizen militias.
Oh, absolutely. And to expound on that, not only can you build an LSW automatic rifleman type thing and have it be very effective, as we've been talking about all night, you can also fulfill the role of grenadier as well. I have an M249 and 37 millimeter, completely legal. It's not even a firearm. And, yes, you have severe range limitations over a 40 millimeter M249, but you can still put out smoke. You can still put out TPT. You can have signaling flares. You can have a lot of the special capabilities that a 203 brings, because your 203 gunner has responsibilities other than just covering the dead space.
And I want to say, if you are looking to do a light support weapon for civilian use, I would not go the belt fed route. I know there's like the Shrike and stuff like that. It's just, I would stick with something that will take magazines. magazines are readily available. Everybody's got them. Everybody that's AR enthusiast has magazines, and God knows if shit hits the fan, end of world scenario, like there's going to be AR magazines out there, but there's not going to be a great plethora of 5.56 links floating around.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Great point, Brent. Great
So
point.
someone said, why do we need an LSW squad auto rifle? Same thing. They're synonyms of each other. Why do we need an idle rifle in our fire team? Can't we get by without one? That's by Mac 14. And the answer is, yeah, you can get by without one. You can. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. That's BS. I mean, oh no, you've killed us all. But here's what I am trying to say. Let's imagine you have 5 guys, right? Let's just play some math here. You have 5 guys. One of them has an LSW, and the other 4 have rifles and carbines. For short periods of time, for very short bursts and suppression and hits on target, the LSW is going to perform the same as those 4 guys with a rifle. Okay, it's about, and it might be, oh well, no, it's 3 in 1 versus instead of 4 in 1. I don't know. It's the point is it's roughly equivalent to a fire team for a short period, for short bursts on target. Okay, so it's roughly equivalent for that. So if I got 1 guy with a LSW and 3 or 4 guys with rifles, then I've got a base of fire and a maneuver element. That's what I'm saying. Whereas if I've got just, let's say, everybody with the rifles, I've got a very weak base of fire and a very weak maneuver element. I've just split my combat power in half to try to achieve that same thing. This is why auto rifles are, there's typically 2 auto rifles in every squad, every rifle squad. The Marines started that in, what was it, 39, I think. They did that. The Army wouldn't pick it up at first. Well, the Army goes through Guadalcanal, and they come out the backside of that and said, screw this, the Marines were right. Every single rifle squad needs 2 auto rifles. And so they got 2 BARs. And you really see this bear out, like I said. It was already being panned out, but I don't know that it was codified, like captured in the doctrine. In Korea, it absolutely becomes codified in the doctrine. It actually becomes part of their school where, okay, either both auto rifles lay down a base of fire and the rest of the squad bounds, or vice versa. They set down the base of fire and those 2 auto rifles bound and get into the flanks, and they just start messing up. Because you got 2 auto rifles from a squad. Let's say a squad, I don't know, let's keep it simple. Let's say it's 10 guys, right? You've got 2 auto rifles. That's the same firepower for short periods of time as 2 fire teams. Oh, but wait, I've still got 2 more fire teams. So it just gives you so much more combat power. It gives you so much more hitting power. Now, I'm saying hitting power. I'm not trying to pretend that it's sustained fires. Okay? Machine guns do sustained fires. Auto rifles don't. They don't have that capability. You'll literally damage it. Oh, force multiplier. Yes, I suppose I could have just said that.
Doc doesn't like to take the short route.
Laziness. That's what that is. Why, that's laziness. Yes, force multiplier. Thank you. That's what it is. So is it necessary? Nope. Sure is going to help you, though.
Well, if you're not looking at the AR platform, which you should, like Doc's already mentioned and Les have already mentioned several key reasons why. There are other possibilities out there. There's a semi-automatic RPK, plentiful. I know in recent years, I think Century Arms has made their own, but those are out there. Sim 62 by 39 is your flavor, your cup of tea. That's an option. So,
Brent, can I add to that? So Franklin Armory makes apparently a killer binary trigger for the RPK too. Yep.
Well, I think we've hit every wicket that we wanted to hit with this conversation, guys. Can you think of anything else?
No, I think we've pretty much beat this dead horse.
Anybody got any comment section you want us to hit before we wrap this up and call it quits? while we're waiting on a good question to
I got one here. Drum mags. Yeah, that's a loaded thing there. For your AR, you've got the D60 from Magpul, pretty reliable drum, but they're hard to carry effectively. It's great to start out with one, but there's no really good way to carry spare D60s without giving up a lot of real estate on your LBE or your 782 gear. And avoid the beta mag. They're too fragile. I've used them. I've got some, and they're great if you're in a fixed position. But yeah, outmaneuvering in the field, they're fragile. They're finicky. The best thing I found for them in the field is that pouch that will hold your beta mag on your 782 gear is excellent for holding 5 40-round PMags. So you double your ammo output. That's about the best use of a beta mag in the field.
Yeah, if you want proof of that, go watch my Klein Machining AR upper when I'm actually running with a full auto lower those magazines, and I use a beta mag at one point, and you can see I get at least, I think, 3 misfires, malfunctions, and they were failure to feeds, I believe. So, I mean, I ended up shooting the whole thing. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, but I still had misfires. Whereas when I used the magazines, whether they were regular 30-round magazines or Magpul 40-round magazines, they fed just fine.
Yeah, and your other high-capacity options for you are the Surefire magazines in 60 and 100 rounds. The 60s have been improved. The 100-rounders, they're still not reliable, and they're just so ridiculously long that you don't need a bipod on your weapon because it's going to monopod anytime you try to go past the level position.
D60 pouches, yeah. So
still a lot of real estate on your 782 gear you're giving up for a drum. I mean, for the space of that D60 pouch, if it takes up 3 rows of molly, hell, I could get me a pouch that holds 6 AR mags.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with a lot of you're right, the pouches. How do you carry it? I do like the D60. I've heard nothing but good about them. The Surefires were okay. Here's my problem with all of them, and it seriously, and this goes to the Russian 75-round drums too. Good Lord. Make one that shoots blanks, guys. I mean, you want to train with it. Look, if I'm going to sit here and shoot it on a live fire, right? I'm going to shoot it live fire, and then I'm going to get all dynamic with it and do live fire. Well, I want to finish that off with force on force. And I want to put blanks in it, my blank adapter on, my miles gear, and take it into a force on force environment. And I was so hopeful. The Surefires, nope. They just won't take blanks. They just won't feed it. And I thought, well, the D60, because I honestly didn't think the PMag was going to shoot blanks. Oh, it shoots blanks fine. Just the regular, M2, M3 PMag. But that D60, nah, it just won't. No, even that Russian and Chicom 75-round drums. We've put AK blanks in that. God, they're garbage. It fires live rounds, ball rounds, fine. But blank, I don't make anything that works. So, I would love to use them, but
there's several surplus magazine pouches out there that I think would be very practical for a civilian made light support weapon. So I know there's a 4 mag molly pouch, and I can't remember if it was designed for either. I know it's got dual purpose. I think it's 4 mags and one 100-round saw nutsack pouch. But I wonder if that holds a D, these Magpul D, what is it, 60
D60
drums.
Pouch I found it's great for holding a lot of mags of all different types. It's made by Eagle. It's called the M60 ammo pouch, and it holds a 75-round drum for an RPK perfectly with just only a little bit of space. You can fit one other mag in there.
Yeah,
you can put like 6 or 7 AR mags in it. It's almost a little too big for the D60 because you can get 1 in, but you can't quite get 2 in. And then you got extra space, which is just as bad. But that's a pretty good versatile all-around pouch.
So I'm sorry, let me change gears just a little bit. American Lives Matter says, what can you bring as rifles to one shepherd? Your first semester, which is 7 days, Your first semester, we don't bring anything. It'll be issued to you. LSW, DMR, carbine, rifle. It will issue that to you. Now, after that, and I don't blame people who say, look, I have this, I set it all up, I want to train with it. Yeah, talk to us then. What'll happen is when you come in, you'll see that people have a certain amount of exposed barrel. This is the biggest thing, is getting that damn sat on the barrel, and you have to have enough exposed barrel. So when you come in your first semester, ask people that, say, hey, look, I'd love to come back with my XYZ, and they'll say, all right, here's what you need to do to come in, and we'll get this hooked up for you. So I certainly don't want to discourage people from training in force on force with the firearm that they like to use. But yeah, you just need to know what you need. Sex robots. So glad someone said that. What we need is an entire episode dedicated just to sex robots. And yeah.
We already did, Doc. You know that. Hey, one piggyback off that is you got to have a A2 flash hotter or compensator. It's got to fit that blank firing adapter. So I know a lot of people have, these funky dory new age flash hiders and compensators that, I don't know, they're designed not to hurt a squirrel if you shoot next to it or something, but it's got to be standard issue USGI. So that it takes that USGI BFA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I would suggest to people you'd be better off bringing a set of replacement handguards because that has some rails that you can bolt on a light or emitter if you're bringing one. That'll do you more than bringing your whole rifle and having the SATs fitted to it and everything.
We have seen that. A lot of guys will bring in their own optics, their own sling, their own, grips or something like this, and just change it out once they get issued a One Shepherd weapon. Nexus 6 Rachel series. Yeah. Oh, see there. I agree. I absolutely agree. We need to talk about this because I've heard some blasphemy that said that Pris was the preferred model and not Rachel. And I'd like to set that record straight. But anyway, that will be a topic for another night. We will all have to bring copious amounts of beer, and he will have to plan about a 4-hour episode for that. All right.
And none of us will get a word in edgewise.
Let me tell you, I will tell you how this will reshape world religions. Anyway, but yeah, if you want to, there's different ways. Like I said, come out to One Shepherd. You'll figure out what you like, what you don't like. A lot of guys think they want to bring their own and go, this is close enough. And other people say, no, I'll just use yours, but I'll trick it out with my own stuff. We encourage that too. And then other people say, no, I really want to use mine. And that's fine too. So there's some hoops you have to jump through. I'll just give you fair warning. But come on out your first semester and just use our stuff and figure out what's what. Okay.
Yeah, I brought my rifle the very first time I went, and I think that was maybe I brought it out one more time after that. But after that, I just realized there was no point. Just bring in my own set of Picatinny rails, and mounting my own PEC to those rails, and you can put your own optic on there and just zero it using the iron sights, co-witness zero, and it works fine, guys. It works great. And it was a lot easier. So, I kind of got over the whole, I want to use my own rifle. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an AR-15. It is the rifle. It is your rifle. I mean, yeah. Most people use an AR-15. You should know how to use a freaking AR-15. And, I can't remember when this came up, but there was a live stream we did. Maybe it was the Red Dawn episode. And Bruce or John, one of those guys, was like, you're probably not going to end up with the rifle that you're constantly training with. You know what I mean? If you're bugging out and you're getting somewhere, you're probably going to end up with some other rifle. The same rifle, the chances of that staying with you through the whole duration of World War III are slim to none. So,
absolutely true.
Get comfortable using other weapons.
Yeah, I would say if you're coming to One Shepherd and you want your own gear, the two things that would probably stand you best: bring your own sling and bring your own night vision. That will do more for you than bringing your own rifle.
And practice with it before you ever get there too, man. Because people, I don't know how to use this. That's okay. We're going to give you lots of opportunities to do it. But the more you practice at home, the better. So the question to the M15, M16, which is the red BFA, is what goes on your 18 and 20-inch barrels. And the yellow M23 BFA is what goes on your 16 and your 14-inch barrels. Okay. Just, I saw there's a lot of comments there. So, yep. M15, M23. Okay. And
we're saying here, the point of blanks is that they suck. I used to think that, and then I went to one Shepherd. and seriously, Brent, Doc, how many real malfunctions do you see out there because of blanks?
Not enough.
I don't see any, and you know, the whole like miles isn't accurate and stuff like that. Dude, I'm telling you guys, go watch my one Shepherd video I just posted. Dude, our final attack, I get drilled right in the grate. And the reason for that is because we launched our final attack. I mean, I don't want to spoil the video for you, but we launched our final attack, and where we were told that the enemy's where the objective was actually off slightly. And I noticed this, and I ended up being the very front guy, and I had to pivot the whole assault force, and I ended up in the front. And you know, to lead the charge, I essentially drew my bayonet like a freaking NCO sword, you know, to go charge and cut this, you know, cut this imitation concertina wire so my boys can flow through it and assault the objective. And all you literally hear it, one shot, pop, and then you hear. So don't tell me that shit ain't accurate.
Exactly. One Shepherd has cracked the code on miles, and it shows.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you know what? I wish we had more malfunctions because of the blanks. I'm not kidding at all. But there's a couple of things that we've done that that mitigate it. And one thing is that we make sure our BFAs work. No, you can't bring your BFA. We'll use ours. Thank you. It's a safety issue, but also there's some really messed up BFAs in the military. So ours work because we maintained them. And magazines, that's another thing. You get all sorts of just, we were opening beer bottles and propping up wall lockers with our magazines in the Army. And then we would take them out and go, blanks suck. Well, no, they didn't suck. Our crushed magazine is probably what sucked. But, you know, or the feed lips are all, you know, wanky and stuff like this. So, yeah, I think it's just it. When you start to realize how these systems are supposed to work, and you have dedicated people who are passionate about this, that are maintaining it and issuing it, you're going to find that there's a whole lot less to bitch about in terms of equipment failure. And so we enjoy that at One Shepherd.
Yeah, sure. If you got a Gucci trigger, bring it. Go for it. Swap your lower out.
Yep. We allow that too. Some people say, can I just bring my lower? You bet. Yep.
One thing I don't think that's been mentioned. I know I saw it several times in the comments. People have been asking what's the One Shepherd website? Guys, just go to Google and literally type in One Shepherd Leadership Institute, and it'll be the first link that pops up. So, and then I've done a whole host, and Les has 2 video series over that leadership program if you're interested in learning more about it. And then registration just opened like the other day. So hurry up, sign up because they're filling up quick.
Oh, I did see that. Someone early on in this, I hope he's still around. He said, hey, is Bravo Company spring semester? We're 3 days into registration. He's like, has it already sold out? And the answer is almost. Like, I think there's just a few seats for the first 4 days of training. I think the FTX is sold out at this point. And yeah, Alpha Company's summer semester is like, it's half full already. I mean, it's just amazing. We've never had this kind of, it's just been a 3-day run to get people registered. I've never seen this kind of turnout before. I mean, we've seen like high turnouts, but not in the first 3 days of registration. Good grief. So yeah, Bravo Company may be, as we're talking right now, it may be completely sold out. Well, just for the spring. The fall semester is still around. Same with Alpha Company. It's got a fall semester as well. So,
haven't told you yet, Doc. I talked a lot less earlier. I'm planning on doing the spring Bravo. So,
okay. So are you coming out as cadre, or are you coming out as? Okay, cool. Very cool. We need some help there. Yeah, excellent.
So, Well, I think we can start wrapping this up. We're just about at the 2-hour mark. Go around the horn, and then I'll have the final comments. So, Les, you got the con, man.
All right, man. So coming up, like I mentioned earlier in this live stream, tomorrow night I'll have a video coming out about Klein Machining and their RPK upper for their AR. Please check that out if you're interested in it. Mike did a lot of good research on this and validated everything before he started building these things. I am super happy with mine. I chose to go with the M60 bipod. I think I was the first or second person to get it that way. I know Brent has one with the RPK, and they make a version with the AUG bipod. So you've got some choices and flavors there. This Friday, my video on the 40th anniversary FTX of the One Shepherd is coming up. Please check that out. And got a lot of been doing a lot of testing. I was out in the snow this weekend testing out various winter and snow camouflages. And as soon as I get those videos edited, I'll try to get those up in the near future.
All right, guys. So One Shepherd registration is open. And as I said, things are filling up quick. Make sure you jump in and train with us this year. And then beyond that, all I will say is that at a future date, we will get Brent to hammer down the sex robot episode where we will discuss who's better, Pris or Rachel. And I'm all that, Rachel's all about LSW gunner. You can see it. She's got like the frame for it, where Pris is probably just a sub carbine at best. But regardless of which sex robots you go with, make sure you build a whole team. And that includes designated marksmen, rifles, carbines, and at least an auto rifle, which, as we've discussed here this evening, is affordable. It really is affordable. It's attainable for you, and more so than a LMG. And again, you can even find that as long as you're willing to put out the money for a full auto. I do believe binary triggers do work with the the MCR upper. So that's a belt fed. You could consider that as well. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can build a combined arms weapon team with as little as 4 people. You can build a combined arms fire team that gives you far more capability than maybe you're thinking now. Okay. The secret is to build it and to understand each weapon system, what its target prioritization is. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Hey, Doc, can you cover the cost of a semester? Somebody asked about that in the comments.
Thank you. Here you go. Yeah. Good point. So here's what it is. It is for 7 days. It is $900. Okay, guys, let me stop you right there and say $900 gets you this. Gets all your ammunition, gets all your food. You get a rifle, you get miles, you get, whatever, radios and night vision, whatever we have to issue to you, you get that. It covers all that. It doesn't just cover the training and the tentage and parking and the training facility. No, it covers, essentially we say it's one-stop shopping. You show up with your field gear and you show up with your uniforms, we've got the rest, okay? So that's $900 for an entire week. Now, one caveat. If you are between the ages of 14, that's as young. We don't take anybody younger than 14. If you are between the ages of 14 and 22, you are what we call a traditional warrior. And this goes way back into the day, 41 years ago, when One Shepherd began. And anyway, you're a traditional warrior. Go to the second page of the registration, please. You're going to be looking at semester 1, 2, 3, 4 on the first page. If you go down to the bottom and you look, you'll say, oh, wow, look at that. There's a second page. Click on that, because if you're between the ages of 14 and 22, by the time of registration, I don't care what you are later, but if you are at the time of registration, click on that. It's $500 for the semester, for the entire semester. So if you're a traditional warrior, we require that you, in order to get that price, that you attend the entire semester, right? You have to go to all 7 days. Where the cool thing about paying the I guess, full tuition, if you want to say, is that you can smorgasbord it. You can say, well, I just want to go to the first 2 days, or I want to go to the first 2 days and the middle 2 days, but I don't want to go to the FTX at the end. Whatever. You can like mix and match. But anyway, yes, if you are 14 to 22 years of age, please go to the second page of the registration, and it is a substantial savings to you. Okay. Thanks, Brent.
All right, guys. So I guess I'll comment first on the whole topic at hand, the automatic rifleman. So my my opinion, and again, I was of the belief originally when the IAR was first coming out that we shouldn't have did it. We should have stayed with the saws for the automatic rifleman role. Over that time, I've seen the M27 IAR's effectiveness in that automatic rifleman role, and I'm committed, guys. I'm a firm believer. I think we kind of strayed off our original roots and the original idea of what the automatic rifleman was. You know, we went from a BAR, an automatic rifleman gunner carrying a BAR, to, you know, certain variants of the M14, an automatic variant of the M14. Yes, most of the standard infantry riflemen had little plugs in the rifle to make them semi-automatic only, and the automatic rifleman had the the automatic variant. And then we ended up with essentially the SAW in the 80s, and we steered off course of what it originally was. I think we're back on track. And then, you know, the Marine Corps just said, hey, this weapon's great. We're going to give it to everybody. So I don't know. The jury's still out on that. You know, as a first sergeant of Marines, I'm carrying an M27 IAR. Don't know if that's really practical, but yeah, that's my TO weapon right now as a first sergeant. So, you know, we'll see. What time will tell. We covered a lot of stuff tonight. It's been a good conversation. We didn't have the normal grand panel that we normally have, but I think the good doc and Les and I kind of covered the topic pretty in depth, and I think we did a pretty good job. So the final thing I want to touch on before I close this out is, guys, I'm gonna do a new live stream addition to my channel, and this is not going to take the place of anything else. I'm still going to continue to have these live streams with these large panels on Mondays, but I want to integrate something new, and what that's going to be is essentially like stories with warfighters, episode 1 through whatever. And what I want to do is people that I know that have served the country, served in the U.S. military, I want to interview them, just them and me, and just go through their career. You know, what led to them joining the U.S. military, what service, and their time in the military. Because, you know, whether that was just 4 years or 20 years, everybody has a big story to tell. And through 20 years of being in the Marine Corps, I've met so many guys, so many awesome individuals who just have unbelievably awesome stories, and just it would be interesting to see how these guys ended up, you know, what made them join the U.S. military, and what are they doing now, where they ended up in life. Because I know a bunch of these guys have just been super successful, and I think every single one of them could probably point to their time in the U.S. military as paving the road in gold for making all that happen. So that is something I want to do very, very shortly. And some of my first guys are probably going to be the two that are in this room right here. So in any event, guys, I wanted to let you guys be the first ones to know that that's something on the agenda that's going to be coming down the pipe here shortly. But I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation tonight about the automatic rifleman's role and weapons. And I hope you gathered something out of it. I know we touched over the civilian aspect, which we haven't really talked about too much on this channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. So anybody got any saved rounds?
Just to say, I saw you, Stumptown. Rock us on, brother. Rock us on.
All right, guys. Have a good night.